Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays with Sarah. I'm glad to have you here on the Hangout, and uh, just glad that you're here today. For those who aren't familiar or who didn't join this Hangout via email, I host a blog called musiciansempower.com, where I help musicians really kind of get a handle on the aspect of music marketing, and have a lot of great tips and tricks in there. And today, what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to actually talk about a little something different than the usual, what I usually like to talk about. A lot of times I get into the real technical aspects of things, and that can be good because, you know, those things are changing all the time and you need to have a resource to be able to get to those things. But the thing is, if you don't have what's going on with you right, then sometimes it's difficult to actually get the outcomes that you want. I know that, you know, this has been true for me in my life. You know, at times where, you know, maybe I didn't have either, you know, the confidence in myself, or maybe I had all the confidence in, you know, myself, but for some reason I just didn't believe that I could get the desired outcome that I really wanted. And I'm going to share with you a little story where this really not kind of, but definitely holds true. Let me get a little sip. So I had these two shows, and this is probably, to me, I feel like this, like, even though one of them was a total bust, you know, sometimes there's, I don't know if any of you have ever read Napoleon Hill or not, or if you've read, you know, maybe you have. Those who haven't, I recommend you, and you can either, you can do one of two things. You can either, you can either buy it online or on your, you know, on your, whatever, your app, or you can actually go to on YouTube. They got a lot of the older books, you know, you can listen to them, and you can listen to it if you just would rather do it that way. But Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And so from the title, and some of these older books, you know, like that may have a little bit of a hokey title. At least I view it as kind of hokey, like Think and Grow Rich, because to me, it just doesn't sound right. You're like, you know, especially if you got the work mentality of you gotta, you know, and so right off the bat, your brain, at least the way I was before I read it, and this was years and years ago, you know, it was like, Think and Grow Rich, what? And so, but it's seriously one of the best mindset books you can get. And what's really great about it is it's a breakdown of successful people in the past, and that basically the attributes, the characteristics they had about who they were in common that made them successful. So he basically just did a study of successful people and said, you know, these things, you know, are what makes someone successful. And so it's a really great book for that reason, and just kind of a great self-examination thing as well, which I kind of got off into a tangent. But anyway, so yeah, definitely, if you don't have that book yet, I would recommend you checking it out. So, but what I really wanted to get into and talk about was, so I had something happen. This was when I was in Nashville, and I'll never forget it. And even though, the whole point of bringing up the Napoleon Hill is one of his sayings is, every adversity comes with it basically an equal or greater like profit, which I'm kind of like, I'm totally, you know, messing that up, but it's basically, that's the whole meaning of it, that every adversity you go through life, there's something greater that you get in return. And so having that philosophy, I think, is super important. And I think mostly because, if a lot of times the things that stop us in life, you can see two different people. You can see one person who's super successful and one person who, basically stopped chasing their dreams. And they stop chasing their dreams, and it's always because you never hear people say, oh, I just didn't want to do that anymore, or, oh, I just didn't, feel like, it just wasn't my passion anymore. And a lot of times if they do say that they weren't passionate about it, it's because something actually took away their passion. Some belief actually took away their passion. Like, for instance, like, maybe it's like they came across some stumbling block and they just felt like they couldn't get over it. Yet then you've got this other person who is successful, and they may have hit the exact same stumbling block, but for some reason or another, they didn't let it stop them, and usually what I believe is it's because those people, the ones who are successful, are the ones who continually to keep their eye on the prize, and they don't get bogged down. Tony, I'm trying to think of his name now, Tony Robbins, he talks a lot about this kind of mindset, and about how, about how these kind of memories, these kind of bad things can really, hold you down, and how a lot of times the reason why those things bring people down is not necessarily because of the incident that happens to them or the thing that gets in their way itself, but it's because of that thing happens, and then it's replayed in someone's mind over and over and over and over again. And then the memory of it becomes greater and greater and greater and greater. And, just eventually, it just gets to where that memory of this bad thing that happened is way greater and way bigger than their dreams. And so the successful person is one who those same things happen to, but instead of, being, bogged down and, and just, focusing and replaying in their mind those obstacles and those things that have happened, they say, well, they do the same thing as Think and Grow Rich. They say every adversity comes with it a greater benefit. And so that automatically changes your mindset into no longer thinking about your obstacles, but thinking about your goal again. And so it also opens your mind to seeing, hey, what's around me? What did I get from this, And so I'm going to share with you something that happened to me personally when I was living in Nashville, Tennessee. I was in Nashville, and I had these 2 sets of shows, and there was nothing that's happened in my life thus far that has shown me more of the power of positive thinking, and how it can really, how it really can guide you. And, and it's not just, the fluff of positive thinking, but, keeping that mindset and visualizing. Visualization is so important. Okay, so I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had 2 sets of shows. And they were at the exact same location. It was at Radio Cafe, and this was in East Nashville. There's not a Radio Cafe anymore. If any of you see my Twitter handle, it's at Radio Cafe. Well, that was why, because I had an album called Live with Radio Cafe. So that Twitter handle started out as my personal Twitter handle. So anyways, which is now Musicians Empowered. So I had these 2 sets of shows. One was in May and one was in September. So both were about the same, I want to say, like, heat, weather, none of these things were a factor. So, if you were doing a scientific study, you would see that, these 2 things were, all the other elements were pretty much very similar. So I had these 2 sets. Now, the very first show that I had, and these were both these shows I recorded live for an album. And so the very first show, and the reason why we did it that way is because there were some songs I had to redo. So that didn't come out quite like I wanted. So, so this first show that we recorded, I would continually visualize in my mind, and I'm not, not making this up, seriously. I would just envision that place packed and a line of people out the door wanting to get in who couldn't, I would continually just practice visualizing that, and I would do that. I did that, a couple months beforehand, and I did that very frequently. I don't know that I did it every day, but I did it very frequently. And anytime I would think about that event, I would always envision, the place just packed and people standing outside outside the door wanting to get in. Well, so, I did a lot of things to promote that show. I did a radio ad. I did on Lightning 100 in Nashville. I did, flyers all around town. I plastered the city in Nashville, all the hot spots, and East Nashville. I, made sure to tell absolutely everybody I knew that this was coming up. I even made these little things that look like tickets, even though it was free to get in. I wanted just people to, really take this as seriously as I did. So, I did all these things, and at the end of the day, it was packed. And so, come time for the show, it was packed. It was great, Oh, and I also had someone open for me, who I knew who would bring people in as well. So I did all these things, and the place was packed. And, but it all started with my up here. Before I ever did any of those other action steps, it was up here that I was visualizing the place packed. So then come several months later, same show, a recording for the same album. And for some reason, I had this fear that nobody was going to be there. I was so scared that nobody was going to be there. Now, I had no reason for this fear being within me, for having this fear base. There was no reason for me to have this fear. But for some reason, it was there. And I didn't try to fight it off. Instead, I just went with it. So you'll never guess what happened. Same show, same place, and nobody was playing to an empty room. And my fears became true. And so the point here is not is the focus. It's not the fear, and it's not even necessarily the fear or the belief, but the thing that I did, it started out as a seed. I can't tell you, and I don't remember if that fear ever crossed my mind in the first show. But if it ever did, I pushed it out of my mind, and I stayed focused on my belief and envisioning that place would be packed. On the second show, I believed that it would be empty, and it came true. And so, and this isn't about some, like kumbaya type crap, but the thing is the seed that you plant in your mind and that you water will eventually come into fruition. Now, someone who's cynical could come around and say, well, yeah, but I don't, you obviously did all the work over here, on the one that was successful, and you just really didn't do much promoting it over here. So it's, it doesn't surprise me that you didn't. But those things, those action steps are a result from the seeds that I planted in my mind to begin with. And then that I chose to water. And so what I want to encourage you today is I want you to really watch your thinking and how you're, thinking about things. Are you planting seeds of doubt? Are you planting seeds of a fear of failure? Or are you planting seeds of hope? And it's just like a garden. It's not, positive thinking is not one of these things that you're just either a positive person or a negative person. It's something where you've got seeds and you choose which to water and which weeds to pull. Are you going to pull up the good roots? Or are you going to pull up the weeds? You know, anytime that doubt comes in, you know, pull it out, pull it out. Anytime you're thinking, oh man, you know, I just don't know that I can do this, pull it out. You know, anytime, you know, that any of those doubts creep in, tend to your garden, get those weeds out. When you think about, and then when the things cross your mind, or you think, or you about being successful, water that, and you know, take time to actually intentionally visualize it, and you know, and see it. Tony Robbins is also a really great great guy to listen to, because he talks a lot about this, about, you know, really focusing on being successful, and just and how being able to visualize. You know, he talks about how, you know, he started out as a janitor and now, you know, is a multimillionaire, all because it started with the seed that he chose to water. Does it take action steps? Yes. But the thing is, you know, right now, like for instance, we've got these every Tuesdays, and we've got these webinars, and I can give you the best information in the world. You know, on that second show, I did not have the information of how to get people there. I did not know how to do it. I obviously did, because the first show I had a ton of people there. But so obviously I had all the right information. But you can have all the right information in the world, know exactly what to do, but if you don't have the, you know, everything right up here, if you don't have, you know, the vision and believing in yourself, and you know, believing in your dreams, and believing that, you know, in that you'll see your vision through, then none of this other stuff, it doesn't really matter. You know, and the thing is too, like this stuff will change. I mean, 10 years ago or more, or a little more, there wasn't even Facebook. You know, 20 years ago, there wasn't Facebook. All these things, they go through, you know, all these things that I've been teaching, they're good, but, you know, those things change. Those action steps change. But your heart, your beliefs, your desires, those are the things that you want to water and to continually grow and to get things to multiply. What I want to encourage you to do, if you can, if you've got your phone next to you, if you're not watching this on your phone, go ahead, if you haven't already, and download that Periscope app. Because what I'm going to do here at about 4:30 is I'm going to get on Periscope, and I'm going to have kind of like a Q&A session. And so I'll also be talking about a little bit more of this and about your beliefs and stuff like that. But then I'm also going to be answering any questions that you may have that you want to ask me, just about pretty much anything. So definitely download that app and get on there. And so if you aren't catching this live, there is a recording that's going to be later. And so I know this is kind of a new thing. It may take people a while to catch on, but so I want to start doing this more frequently, kind of a Q&A session after these Tuesdays with Sarah, just to kind of create some kind of platform to where things are a little more interactive. And so that's what's really great about it's the Periscope. It streams live. So just look for that app. Look for Musicians Empowered. And our handlebar is at Radio Cafe, so which it's connected with Twitter. So definitely download that app. And I just want to encourage you today to, I really don't think I want to talk about anything else, only because I really want you to kind of let this marinate in your mind and your spirit today. And so have a wonderful, blessed day, and I will see you in Periscope at 4:30. The great thing about the Periscope app is if you'll go ahead and download it, and you find Musicians Empowered, follow me, and then it'll ping your phone and let you know that we've started with the broadcast. And I'll see you in a little bit.